Hi guys, how are you? I'm Hamlet Azarian. Today we're going to talk about how generative AI is shaping the way we work and create. Clicker Chigortu. Again, I'm Hamlet Azarian. So I've been a lifelong learner working on growth. I've been predominantly working with venture-backed startups. Click. And in the process of this, let me tell you a little bit of what growth is and how I've come to this. So some of you, I'm going to ask, since there's a lot of people, I'm going to make this a little bit more interactive. Everyone see? Where's click on it? How many of you here have heard about left brain and right brain? Okay, perfect, everyone. How many of you here are left brain, much more analytical? Take your hands up. Perfect. How many of you are right brain, much more creative? Take your hands up. Perfect. How many of you are both? Keep your hands up. Awesome. So the ones who raise both of their hands, you're actually on the verge of becoming a growth marketer. People who are able to use both their left side of the brain and their right side of the brain are able to see the world in a different way. They're able to see it in this notion of called a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. And everything you look at, you're always observing and looking and trying to learn from it. Click. So what growth marketers try to do is they try to form this what's called a T-shape. So what a T-shape is you have in the bottom layer or the top layer is this vast base knowledge layer where you're starting to learn different things. So you might be learning statistics, you might be learning programming, you might be learning product design and UX principles, analytics, behavioral psychology, or branding, positioning, and storytelling. You're so curious because your left and right brain are always triggering you, you're always expanding and you're hungry for more and more information. As you start developing this base knowledge layer, when you get into marketing per se, you start also thinking about what are the different disciplines within the marketing sphere that gets you excited. So here it might be conversion rate optimization, A/B testing, database querying, Photoshop and wireframing, Excel modeling, copywriting, and funnel marketing. These are just some examples of things that start exciting you and saying, oh, what else can I do? Then on top of that, you start now getting into channels. And as a growth marketer, you also start learning all the different kinds. At least what I've noticed in Armenia, there's the social and the PR and the content marketing, but there's a whole other world of different channels available, from display ads, native ads, Apple search ads, email marketing, affiliate, SEO, and SEM. And when you get better at each one of these, you start going deeper and deeper inside of the knowledge, and that becomes what's called a T-shaped marketer. This is me. This will not be the same for you. It will be different and individualized for who you are as a person. So this is what growth marketing is about. So click. So why am I sharing this with you? Because what I've learned, at least here, while I've been working in the Armenian ecosystem, so let me give you a little bit of story about me. I've been in growth marketing for about 12 to 15 years. I've been working with venture-backed startups, and in the process of this, either through luck or skill, I like to think a little bit of both, but more preferably on the skill side, we've been able to help 3 different startups become really large. One of them almost became publicly traded last year. Another one has offices in LA, Mexico City, as well as Colombia, Bogota. And a third as well has offices in LA, Connecticut, and as well here in Armenia. These companies collectively have raised over $260 million while working with me and us and our team. And we've been working on this, what is called a growth marketing process. And what this really is, and what I want you guys to really think about in this chart, is we all think growth is very linear. We set a goal, we walk up the stairs, we shoot different arrows, and we start going over and over and over to get there. But what we really quickly realize, it feels a little bit chaotic. What am I going to do? What am I going to focus on? What am I going to actually work on? And over time, as you start becoming much more system-driven and system thinking, you start realizing that it could be very process-oriented. It could be super organized with a central, sort of like in the middle where you have a focus and a goal, and from it you're trying experimenting different things to drive growth, not in just a linear fashion, but in a bigger circle as you grow the circle as a whole. So this is our version of what growth marketing is. Click. Perfect. So today, now that you know what growth marketing is, we're going to kind of give you a little bit insights into our agency. So our agency has 11 employees here in Armenia today. We're actually hiring 7 more. I know it's crazy to think that. You're probably hearing about layoffs and how hard the economy is and how hard things are. For us, we work with venture-backed startups. This is the exact market you're hearing that's struggling. We actually have an opposite problem. We're hiring 7 people and growing, and we're going to get to 18, and we have clients that we can't even take on because of the demand that we have in our services. So in today's conversation, we're going to talk about generative AI. We're going to talk about fine-tuning. And we're not going to get into the weeds, like if you're here to want to learn how the algorithms work and that's what you're looking for, sorry, that's not the conversation for it. What we're going to talk about is how I taught my 9-year-old son generative AI. Yes, he's 9 years old and he's using ChatGPT. So I'm going to walk you through how he understands how to use it now and how he understands how the different models actually work and how he can go from creating art to writing prompts to actually getting information that he needs, that he blows his friends away because they're like, whoa, how did you do that? So that's what I will walk you through that. So if any of you have 9-year-olds here or family or kids, or you haven't gotten to that level of explaining ChatGPT to them, I'm hoping that at the end of the session, you'll be able to do that. And in addition to that, we're going to give everyone here that's actually attended today 600 prompts. So you will have 600 prompts that you can use totally free, given to you to get you started on creating ChatGPT. On top of that, we're going to show you the 90 best AI tools currently in the marketplace so you can actually be informed and aware of them. The good news is some of them are actually Armenian startups. So you will notice a few of the Armenian startups have made that list. All of that is totally free for you for attending today. At the end of this session, we'll have a live demo and then also a Q&A. Any questions? Awesome. Moving on. So first, before we start, show of hands. How many people today have used generative AI? Awesome. Perfect. Next question. So what is generative AI? So let me kind of explain it to you how I explained to my 9-year-old son, Sebastian. So Sebi, I'm going to call him Sebi because that's his name. So Sebi and I, every night, we sit down and we start reading a book. The book we're now reading is called Magic Tree House. It's about Jack and Annie. And every day it's our ritual at 9 o'clock. I have to argue with him that he has to read a book. He doesn't want to read the book. So we go back and forth for about 5 minutes, and then he says, yes, Dad, I will eventually read the book. We go and he takes a shower, he gets in bed, and we sit down, we start reading this book. And in the process of reading this book, something happens to him. He gets excited as we start playing characters. I become Annie sometimes. It's kind of odd. I know I'm Annie, and he's Jack. And we go through the process of reading the story. And each one of these stories is on this adventure that they're going through time, through space, and there's different lessons that are being taught. So one night I see that he's struggling with reading again, even though we have fun and it's a struggle. And I said, hey, do you see the robot over there? He's like, yeah. He goes, he calls him Kevin. And I'm like, yeah, Kevin, the robot. He's like, what would you do if Kevin had read Jack and Annie already? He's like, that'd be so cool. I can ask him questions. I'm like, yeah, you don't even have to read it. I could just tell him what the story happens. Yeah, he'll tell me. I'm like, what if he not only read the one Jack and Annie book, what if he read all the Jack and Annie books? He's like, I don't have to read the books anymore? I'm like, no, you don't have to read the books anymore. Oh, what if he not only read all the Jack and Annie books, he read all the books in the library that you have on your bookshelf? He's like, he read all the books on the library on my bookshelf too? Yeah, he's read all the books. And not only that, he's also watched all the pictures that you have, all the photos that we've ever taken, all the videos that you've ever recorded, and he knows all about that. He goes, Dad, you're lying. That's not happening today. I go, yeah, that's actually happening. And that is exactly how all these models are being trained, right? So there's all this data that has been collectively created and shared in, and the models now are able to go and you're able to ask it questions and understand exactly what's happening, okay? So now he understood that this robot, Kevin, has all this information, so I wanted to take this a little bit further with him. Click. So what are some of the key components of generative AI? Click. So, of course, I couldn't sit here and try and explain what a neural network is. He's a 9-year-old. How the heck is he going to understand that? Or what a generative model is. Again, he's a 9-year-old. What is a generative model to a 9-year-old? Or let alone what's natural language processing, okay? So I have to start thinking about how do I simplify these terminology that we have to make it easier for him to understand. So I started thinking more about images because he's really into how images are created. He likes to draw. So there's a model called generative adversarial networks. So we started playing a game. So I said, all right, Sebi, we're going to start drawing a dog. He's like, all right, we're going to draw a dog? I'm like, yeah. So you're going to be the drawer, and every time you draw a dog correctly, I'm going to give you a point. But if you're not able to draw this dog correctly, you're not going to get a point at all. And he's like, why? I'm like, because that's the game. So you have to be able to draw a dog. He's like, okay. So he starts trying to draw a dog, and it's the worst dog I've ever seen in my life. It's like a stick figures, it's a box, it has 2 circles on it. And he's like, Dad, do I get a point? I'm like, no, there's no way you're getting a point on this. And he gets really mad for a second, but he says, why? I'm like, well, the body is wrong, the feet are wrong, the face is wrong, the ears are wrong, everything is wrong. So he draws it again, and he fixes the feet a little bit, he fixes the body a little bit, and he asks again, do I get a point now? I'm like, no, you did better on the body, you did it better on the feet, but the face is still long, and you're missing the tail. And then he draws it again, and he draws it again, and eventually he starts getting a point. This is how generative adversarial networks work, by the way. So images are broken down and images are recreated, and in the process of this, whenever it's not correct, no point is given, but the model is asked why it's not given and it's fixed. So now he understands how this works. Then we moved on to the next one. Variable autoencoders. So what we started doing with variable autoencoders is, go to the next conversation. We started looking at his room, and we started playing this game. And I saw he likes Play-Doh. So Play-Doh, he has it all over in the room, and it's all in the corner. I'm like, hey, why don't we ask Mom a question? He's like, what are we going to do? I'm like, why don't we get Mom involved in this game as well? So he's like, okay. I'm like, why don't we take these Play-Dohs that you have? He had a blue one, he had a green one, and he had a red one. Why don't you try to explain color to your mom without being able to say it's blue, green, or red? He's like, oh, okay, that's kind of easy to do, I think, Dad. I'm like, are you ready to play this game? He's like, yeah. So he runs downstairs. He's like, Mom, can we play this game? She's like, yeah, of course we can. So he first starts explaining blue, right? So he goes to Mom, it's the color of the sky and the water. Mom's like, oh, okay, it's blue. He's like, yes, I got one. And then he goes and starts to explain green. He's like, Mom, it's the color of, where I play soccer. And Mom's like, well, I don't know, you play soccer in a dirt field, grass field? It's like, oh, Mom, it's the color of, where we go and lie down and have a picnic. And she's like, oh, you're talking about grass, green. He's like, yes, I got that. And then in the last one, he goes, Mom, it's the color of your heart. She's like, oh, Sebi, that's so easy. It's red. So this is the notion of variable autoencoder. So what Sebi has learned is he's taking a complicated thing, color, he's simplifying it in a way, and it's getting basically broken down, and then Mom is able to decode that. And this is exactly how these models work, okay? So how are these used? These are used for recommendation engines. So if you're ever shopping online and you start seeing different recommendations come to you, predominantly variable autoencoders are what the cornerstone of what's creating that and making that possible. So moving on to the next one. Then we started talking about transformer models. The exact reason you're all here, right? Generative AI, transformer models. I'm like, how the hell am I going to explain this to him? He's a 9-year-old. I got to try to figure this out so he fully understands it. I feel like Vanna White and go, where's my slide? Okay, perfect. So I start thinking about how am I going to explain generative AI models to my son, right? A 9-year-old. So I'm like, all right. He loves movies, he loves cartoons, and there's a particular cartoon he used to watch all the time. And if people haven't guessed what this cartoon is yet, we'll get into it a little bit. So we start talking about how are we going to go play this other game with Mom? We're going to go play a new game with Mom, and we're going to say you cannot say at all the name of the characters to Mom, and Mom has to be able to figure out exactly what you're talking about. He's like, okay, but is Mom really going to know this? I'm like, well, that's the key. You have to tell her specific things. Maybe it's about the adventure, or maybe it's about the story, but you have to give Mom enough information so she can think about all the movies in the world and all the movies you've watched with her, so she could understand exactly what this particular movie is all about. So if you guys are not catching on, I'm starting to teach him prompting, right? So he stops meeting him, and he's like, okay, so let's go tell Mom. So he runs to Mom, and he's like, Mom, I want to play this new game. I'm going to say a couple things, and you're going to guess the movie. Mom's like, okay, I'm going to guess the movie. So Mom got a prompt. She knows it's a movie already. So you're like, all right, so what else am I going to do? She's like, well, This movie is about a kid who gets lost. And mom's like, oh my God, how many movies are about a kid gets lost? So mom is totally lost. She doesn't, I don't know, Sebi, that's not enough. So mom is throwing out all these movie names, hundreds of them, and she's not getting the right one. And then Sebi's like, no, it's none of those. So it's about a kid who gets lost in an ocean. And mom's like, kid who gets lost in an ocean? What kid lives in an ocean? So mom is really even more confused, and she's not sure exactly what he's talking about. It's about, Mom, it's about not just a kid that gets lost in an ocean. You're so wrong, Mom. It's about a fish that gets lost in an ocean, and the daddy starts looking for the fish, and the fish can't remember and is always forgetting. I was like, oh my God, you're talking about Finding Nemo. So as this conversation with Sebi and Mom goes around, I start explaining to Sebi, do you see what happened here? She's like, no. She's like, you gave her not enough a specific information. This caused her to start getting really, really confused. So now generative AIs are really about natural language processing. And what they do here is they allow you to do text generation, right? So you're able to write and create content and do whatever elements of that you want to do. They can easily be used to chatbots and virtual assistants, which you all raised earlier your hand that you've been doing generative AI and ChatGPT. And on top of that, they're able to help with machine translation. So they're able to do all elements of this. And overall, as I told you earlier, with this new invention, what's happened, there's hundreds and hundreds of companies starting to flourish. Some of them were originally focused in AI, but the technology itself has become so easier to implement that there's not only existing companies using it, that there's more. In different categories, we're going to go really fast through this: text, image, audio, MLOps, and so on and so forth. We'll give you a list of all of those companies at the tail end of this. But what's more important is the timeline of this, right? So the models themselves started in 2018 to starting to come through, and now we're in 2023. As you can start seeing, there's two layers here. One is the private models, and one is the open source models. And as we're going through what's becoming sort of like the model wars, there's bigger models coming up and much more effective, and we're really in the first inning of this. So here, I'm gonna ask another question. I'm gonna stop. There was a lot of information right there. Who has heard of fine-tuning? Raise of hands. No one's heard of fine-tuning. All right, one. We got one fine-tuner. That's it. No one else has ever fine-tuning, right? Okay. Now let me explain. I had to now, so everyone knows the story of my son. He knows how to prompt. He knows how he's asking mom questions, but he's struggling because he's trying to ask her other questions, and he's still general. His questions are too general, but she's not doing a good job. So I'm like, okay, let me try to explain how fine-tuning works to my son so he can ask some general questions, and mom will know exactly what he's trying to do. So go to the next slide. So I go back to his toys, and I start looking at all the different toys he has. I'm like, why don't we start taking the specific toys you have and play specific games with them? He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, we'll take this robot and it's played for this game. And we'll take that robot, it's played for that game. And we take that robot and it's played for that game. He's like, okay, that makes sense. I'm like, but in order for the robot to know the games, you're only going to give it certain information. And whenever you ask it any type of questions, it's only going to be thinking about that game first. He's like, oh, okay, so you're saying I can just play chess with this robot? I'm like, yeah, this will be the best chess player. And what am I going to do with this robot? I'm like, whatever you want to do. He's like, okay, I want to play Super Mario Wii with this robot. I'm like, okay, he's going to know all the levels and the games. And what else do you want to do? He's like, well, Dad, this is so cool. So all these robots will be the best at this thing? I'm like, yeah. So we take this, and in order, that's what fine-tuning is, by the way. So what you're doing is you're taking the general generative model, and you're teaching it through data that you're providing it, how to become an expert, so you can give it much more general prompts, and it will be focused on that. So earlier when we were playing the game about Finding Nemo and Sebi was giving the general prompt, mom didn't know what he was talking about. He could still be very general about it, but the model itself will know exactly what the intention of this is, okay? So moving on. So why is fine-tuning important? So if you don't fine-tune, so here's this is a joke, right? So there was a joke done about how you can pretty much train the bot to start doing funnier things if you wanted to do it, or specific things, right? So in this scenario, why did a turkey cross the road? The bot, if you haven't fine-tuned it, it starts thinking about to get to the other side because it thinks it's a chicken, and that's the only answer it really knows, and it kind of starts relating to it. But if you wanted to fine-tune it and start loading a bunch of jokes, funny jokes to try to give the bot a little bit of humor, then it would say something like, because it was his day to meet the chicken. So he would realize he's a turkey, and then there's a chicken. And then you can go on to all these different ones, because it was possible, or because it was the chicken's day off, right? So this is an example of the same prompt without fine-tuning, gives a similar answer, but post-fine-tune, it actually has humor and character, and it's a little bit more advanced, okay? So that's why fine-tuning is important. Moving on. So how do you do fine-tuning? I kind of talked about it earlier, so we're going to skip it. Keep on going. Okay, mask, keep on going. All right, prompting. So earlier I kind of explained the prompting to you guys. Show of hands, everyone who understands prompting now. Is it clear, or do you guys want a little bit more? So? Okay. I'll give you a little bit more, and I'll give you the cookie example, okay? So here we were, we wanted to make a cookie, and Sebi now kind of understands a little bit of prompting, but not fully. So now I actually put him in front of a computer. I open up ChatGPT. He now understands how all of this works, and I'm like, Sebi, go ahead and ask it something. And then he's like, what do you mean? He's like, I can ask it anything. I'm like, you literally could ask it anything that you want. He's like, okay, I want a cookie. Okay, so if I ask it a cookie, is it going to give me a cookie? I'm like, Sebi, it's not going to make a cookie for you. It's not there yet. What it's going to do is going to give you a recipe on how to make a cookie. So he asks it the question. He's like, I want a cookie. And you know what ChatGPT does? ChatGPT is like, it seems like you want a recipe for how to bake a cookie, and blah, 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 blah. And then it gives it a whole laundry list of a recipe of how to bake a cookie. He's like, Dad, it just gave me a recipe, and it's just a cookie. How do I know if it's good? I'm like, well, you kind of said you wanted a cookie. So what's good to you, Sebi? He's like, well, what's good to me is I want it to be chewy in the inside and slightly crusty on the outside, or, you know, when I chew on it, it feels a little hard. I'm like, well, tell it that. He's like, what do we mean? Just tell it exactly what you want. Say, okay, so what do I say? Say, I want a cookie that's chewy in the inside, but not too chewy and a little bit hard on the outside. He's like, yeah. So he actually wrote that, and then the recipe magically updated. And now all of a sudden, now he had a recipe that was fine, a recipe that was much more specific, and that's what really prompting is, you know? So what are some of the best practices for this? Is the reason what I was trying to showcase and show him is that when he was very vague, right? He was saying, I want a cookie. It didn't really know where to go. It gave it the most generic answer that it possibly could, and it leaned towards a safe answer. And because of this, it was actually useless. So if any of you are doing this and you're giving it very specific general questions, you're pretty much at the beginning inning of doing prompting, okay? So what he then started learning and he started thinking about is, how could I get a little bit more specific? And when he started doing that, his answer became much more tailored to what he was looking for, okay? So moving on to the next. So now that he knows how to prompt, now we wanted to see what else he could potentially do with it, right? So there's now a notion of open-ended prompts and closed-ended prompts. What a closed-ended prompt is exactly like the cookie. He's going to ask it a specific question, it's going to give it a specific answer, and it's going to tell him exactly what to do. So one of the things that you need to, in order to do this, is you have to be very, very, very precise. So how would you use this is you'll ask it something like, is email an effective tool for customer retention? And it could specifically answer those questions for you. That's great in some ways, right? But it doesn't really generate your creativity. Remember, a growth marketer earlier we talked about, it's not just analytical, it's also creative. Guess what? ChatGPT is also analytical, and it's also creative as well, too. So if you wanted to give it, we can make it much more creative for you. You could start asking it much more open-ended questions, and this could start now spurring new ideas and new concepts for you. So for example, if you wanted more headlines, or if you wanted new copies, or if you wanted to start generating story ideas, or if you wanted to think about what type of reels to do to get people's attention, and so on and so forth, you could start asking it these open-ended questions, and it'll start spurting out different concepts and different ideas that then you can later on start chaining multiple prompts together and start getting much more specific in what you want to do, okay? So any questions on this? Everything good? All right, cool. Now I'm going to leave it up to you guys. I like to make it very interactive. Do you guys actually want me to prompt, or do you want me to keep on going? I'll let it up to you guys. Prompt? We got one prompt. Okay, one prompt, that's it? I'll do a personal prompt for you later on. If it's only one, should we go on?
No.
No? Prompts?
Yes.
Okay, prompts. Do I have to hold this while I talk, or this won't work?
Yeah, you can switch it on.
What do I do? C'était un autre temps? Okay. All right. All right, cool. So I don't use, I know, crazy to think, MacBooks. We're going to try to do this on a MacBook. So we're a growth marketing agency, right? So what do you guys think is the most fundamental thing to do before you start any marketing campaign? Anybody? Research. That's a good step. Perfect. What else? Strategy. That's a good step. What else? Market survey. That's a good thing. We're going to do all of those right now. So I want you to guys keep on telling me what else. Set goals. Okay. What else? What? Understanding business needs. Okay. What else? Expanding your niche. What else? Come on. This is it. We're going to have generative AI with us. Come on. What? Risks. What else? Who are we marketing to? Do we know that? A person, a persona? We should probably start there, yeah? That would help too. Anything else?
Defining the problem that we want to solve.
The problem we want to solve, okay, perfect. We're headed in a good direction here. So we have risk, competitive strategy, persona, problems, what else did we talk about? Ad creatives, we want to throw ad creatives in there while we're at it, landing pages, are we good? We're going to do all of that, what else? Customer problems, okay, cool. What business do we want to do this for? Nope. Enterprise? Really? Enterprise? So boring. Come on. What do you guys all? Nothing? We're not sure. I'm going to ask the younger kids. So who is under 25 here? Raise your hand. All right, cool. You guys get to pick. One of you say what business you want to do this for. No business? No business. No business. No business is good business. All right, why don't we, what do you guys like? Anything? Movies? Barcamp? We'll do it for Barcamp. You want to do it for Barcamp? I don't know if GPT knows Barcamp, but we could see if it does. What we could do if we wanted to do it for Barcamp is use a plugin. But do you want me to use a plugin and do it for Barcamp? No?
Let's see if it knows it.
Let's see if it even knows Barcamp. Okay, let's see. All right. So we're going to ask it a closed-ended prompt to see if it knows Barcamp, by the way. We're going to start there. So, hi. How are you? Do you know, oh, how do I take the caps off? Sorry, didn't mean to yell. Do you know what Barcamp is in Armenia? I think it's hosted at AUA. I don't think it's going to know. Let's see. Wow. Oh, September 2021. So now how do we solve this? So we're going to have to now go and do a new prompt, GPT, plug in, go to linked reader. Does anyone have actually the prompts? I don't want to do something you guys don't have access to. Do you guys have the prompts? No? No, so I'll keep it here. I'll keep it back here. So let's do something different that it will know. Why don't we do like movies, Netflix? Is that good? Everyone watch Netflix? Does everyone share passwords? It's okay, we're not on video recorded. You don't have to admit this. I know. So, We want to build a customer persona for Netflix. We are trying to understand what are the risks, right? Why should someone trust us? How we can build a strong strategy. Also, maybe run a digital campaign. On top of that, can you give me some interesting stories that I can share with my content team so they can really understand the customer? Anything else? Did you guys ask for? What else were we thinking about? Anything else? No? Okay. Before you do that, can you just give me 5 potential profiles? Because I don't want to waste your time or mine. Let's see what it says. He's probably wondering what an asshole I am.
It's 3.5.
Oh, we're on 3.5? Okay, he's got to think. That's why I don't like to do the demo on 3.5. So let's take it and move it. It's too long of a thinking. And network area. See, I told you don't have good internet. All right, who do we get? We got Movie Marson, whoever that is, Family Man Fred, Bing's Watching Billy, Documentary Dina, and India and Isla. Are we good? Who do you guys want to know more about? Which persona? Fred? Sure? Okay. Can you expand, Fred? Can you expand the stories? Can you go deeper? And Fred, persona. I want to know specifically Facebook ad copies, 10 of them that I can run to get him interested in joining Netflix. Also, why should he trust Netflix? So this is now what I did in a couple sessions here, right? So I kind of did a chained prompt within the prompt, and I was very, very specific on what I wanted it to do, right? That was the first prompt. So what I ended up doing with GPT, even though I was giving it humor, by the way, it's just I'm trying to encourage it with the humor. There's debate if that actually works or doesn't. I just kind of like to do it. I was trying to give it a little bit more creativity. I was trying to encourage it a little bit more. I was trying to give it on the right path of what we wanted to do. But I didn't let it go too far. So then at that moment, I stopped. I wanted to first see if it was headed in the right track. And then when it was headed in the right track, now I'm going down through this chain prompting sequences. And now I'm encouraging it even more and more and more. And I can go deeper and deeper into this wormhole. So now we have trust symbols. So now I can say, can you create a landing page that will attract Fred with the 9th ad? I haven't even read the ad, right? So now it's getting into personalization. It knew it had ads before, right? It actually talked about the 9th ad. Now it's giving me the landing page copy, and it's going to be much more personalized and much more specific. So when a user sees that particular ad, it's going to, on top of that, see that landing page, right? So here comes the landing page. And now that they have signed up, I don't know why, they don't know how to use Netflix. Can you send them some emails that teaches them. So now it's going to give me some, if someone doesn't know how to place Go, if it somehow that was the case, it would start giving us some email copy and encouraging them. So now it's the onboarding flow on how to get a user to become a, yes, you have a question?
Yeah, speaking of Netflix, can you ask GPT when it's going to come out on Wednesday too?
What? Oh, Wednesday too? Yes. Oh, yeah. We have a fun. Let's see. I don't know if it will, but I will ask. Okay, so Wednesday 1 was really good too. So let's see. So now we are watching movies on Netflix. Have you heard of Wednesday? The series? Because honestly, I love it. I really need to know if it's coming out soon. I think you might not know it because it's after September 21, but can you try the plugin or search? I don't remember if I enabled it. I don't even think it's going to do this, but let's see. What?
Euphoria season.
Oh, Euphoria. See, I'm not allowed to talk about that show. No, it's probably not going to know it. But to answer your question, it could have known it. Because in the beginning, there's a way of selecting now. It's become available last 2 or 3 weeks ago for you to be able to go search online. And then through searching online, it's actually going to be able to answer it for you. But if you didn't want to use ChatGPT, you can actually do it with Bing now. Bing allows this for you to actually use elements of what I'm doing here. And you can ask it specific questions that way too. Okay? But it's a great question. And that's where it's headed. So it's headed for you. Eventually where it will go, the future of all of this, it will be your own bot. It will understand you. It will understand what you like. It will understand what you're interested in. And it will not only find you Wednesday, too. It will suggest other shows similar to it. It might tell mom, too. So it might tell mom, hey, I'm suggesting this to mom to make sure mom it's okay. And it will make your life that much easier and simpler. Okay? Any questions on prompting before we go on? Does all this make sense to everybody? By the way, are you 9 years old, too, or no? 12? Okay. Perfect. So now going back to the presentation, where is my clicker? Clicker? So prompting. We did prompt. I don't know if this is on. Listen, McKinsey? Okay, cool. So we did prompting. We've developed sort of the Netflix strategy. Some guy named Fred that I'd never heard of who did a landing page personalized on a Facebook ad, email, and so on and so forth. The reason I'm showcasing all of this, because this is where the world you're about to evolve into, is this notion of very personalized marketing that you can easily get to. As you saw, it only took a few seconds. And that wasn't even automated, right? So now imagine the next version of all of these apps that are going to automate all of this and are going to be super personalized and super hyper-focused, and they're going to speak to you to that level of intimacy. So moving on to the next. Would you use generative AI after this webinar? Hands up, down. Prefer down. I want to know I did a bad job. No hands up, no hands up. So moving on to the next question. Any Q&As? Is there any questions for you guys? Okay, we have a few. So, can we turn off the camera so I can admit what I've done? No, I'm kidding. So what I did recently, and I got caught very badly and poorly, is Valentine's Day was coming, right? And I don't know if Valentine's is big here in Armenia or not big. Is it big in Armenia? It's not that big. It's not that big. So in America, I don't know why. They like to celebrate one day of the year that you love your wife or something, but I love her every day, so that's why it doesn't make sense to me, okay? So Valentine's Day was coming, and like usual, I've forgotten about it. I didn't know what to do, and I'm like, oh my God, this is gonna be the worst Valentine's again, because the same thing always happens to me. She yells at me, she says, you don't care, you don't put any thought into it. I always get into trouble. So what I started doing is I went and found previous letters I had written, right? And I took those previous letters and I fine-tuned the model and I gave the prompt those previous letters I had written. So now it knew my voice, it knew my style of writing, right? Then I remember the trip we had. I quickly ran to Facebook. Please, Ani, if you're watching this, I love you. I really, really love you. So don't be mad. I had to give an example of fine-tuning. So then I went through all the photos that we had watched. Sorry about that. I went all the photos that I'm doing that so she doesn't hear. I went through all the photos we had watched, or not gone to, on the trips we had gone on adventures on Facebook, because that's where she likes to put it. I don't know why. She puts it all there. It was easy for me. So I got to see all the different places we had gone. I said, hey, we've traveled to these different places. I saw the memories, these different moments that had happened in the course of the last year. And I put that into that prompt as well. And I asked it to write a nice romantic Valentine's Day letter. I asked it also to write a Facebook post. I also asked it to write an intimate letter that's not meant to be social, but only speaks to her individually. And it gave me 3 different ones. And then I felt so guilty. I was like, oh shit, do I actually post this? Because it's so good. It sounded exactly like me. I ended up actually posting it. And then you know what she said? She said, did you write this or did ChatGPT write this? She knew right away. For a week, I kept on smiling. I'm like, how are you? Everything good? Everything good? I didn't answer the question. And she usually knows when I don't answer the question. That ChatGPT probably had wrote it. And then eventually one day when a week had gone and the present that I had ordered, because I realized that night that the present hadn't arrived, had finally arrived, I gave her the present and I said, by the way, you were right, ChatGPT did write it, I'm so sorry. She's like, no, that's so cute that you were able to get it to do that. It sounded exactly like you. Okay, so that's how I use fine-tuning in my personal life. So to answer, I know I didn't answer your question specifically, but I answered in a way. Any other questions? Yes?
We have online tools when you put some kind of text, it detects if it is generated by generative AI.
Yes.
How do they do that?
Because when you use the general version of ChatGPT, you know, the one that most people are at, it follows a very systematic way of answering questions. So the way you are able to overcome that is one of the things I constantly tell my team, I'm sure Sona could always talk about, is I tell it to give it a certain brand voice. So I will say, hey, be more crisp, or use this particular writer's style of writing. So if you don't become a little bit more specific, all the tools are able to quickly understand what it does. So another one of the downfalls of not being specific earlier is the information that it might spit out. It's organized to sound very logical and very, very, what's the way to describe it? You're gonna believe what it says, all right? So the best thing you need to do is you actually need to fact check it. So you actually have to go look at the information it's sharing, make sure it's actually accurate. So a lot of content production now, at least for our agency, what it's turned into is we do a lot of early research, understand what we want to do, we create the brand voice, and then the combination of those 2 things, we then give it to ChatGPT and produces perfect content. The team tells me it takes an hour and a half. I have another writer that gets paid on per production. She's the most efficient person. She must be working 50 hours a day. So it's one of those things that once you actually train it properly, you can get really good at it and get a lot of content produced out of it. So, any other questions?
I have one question. Actually my question is, does it store our search history and make it available to a third person, for example?
It does. It does store it. You have to always look at the different, terms and services that they have and how do you want to utilize it. And this becomes an open conversation in general, right? Google stores your search history pretty much. At this point, are you comfortable with that or you're not comfortable with that? And that's the choice that you will have to make as a person. I'm on the camp of take all my data. I'm on that camp, so I'm probably more on the extreme end of things because I've seen the benefits as it could provide for me and what it does to me as a person. It makes me from someone who is able to do a lot to someone who's able to do anything I want. So the fact that I can do anything I want is much more exciting to me than versus the fact that I can do a lot. So these are personal choices you'll have to make. Any other questions?
I have if nobody else.
Sure.
Okay. When you were prompting, you were using the humor approach. Do you
Yes.
think at some level we will reach that it will, the quality of the response will be dependent on how you ask, what kind of humor, or maybe thanks?
Yeah, I pissed it off too. So I didn't go down that path. I could make it angry at me that it doesn't want to answer the questions. It actually starts fighting with me. So it has personality. It generally has personality. So the reason I use the humor approach is I'm in an auditorium, right? And I don't want it to get mad at me and not give me the information I wanted. But yes, it feeds off of what mood you're in. So if you're in a happy, humorous state, the answers will be much more jovial and happy back to you. But if you're in a combative state with it, it thinks you're playing, so it'll fight back with you, right? So it totally plays off of your total mood. Great question. Any other questions? No? All right. Well, thank you, guys. Go to the next. So as I promised earlier, we're going to give you guys 600 plus chats, GPT prompts. So that should hopefully get you started on your world of ChatGPT. On top of that, we're going to give you 90 marketing AI tools that we have reviewed for you and used a pretty decent amount of them along the way over the years. Go to the next. To do that, just scan this if you're interested. Go to the next slide. Don't give it to them. No, I'm kidding. So when you scan this, we're going to ask you a series of questions. We are growth marketers at the end of the day. One of the questions we're going to ask you is your email information. So we need to be able to send the stuff to you. And then on top of that, it's going to be much more feedback that you can provide me as a speaker and how I can improve. Growth marketing is a process of improvement and constantly learning. So please be open. You're not going to hurt my feelings. If I sucked, tell me I sucked so I don't make it sucky for the next person that hears this talk. If I was good, please tell me why. If there was questions you didn't feel like asking, please put it in there too. And I promise you, we will ask if you have a question that we didn't get to, back personalized for you too, using ChatGPT. No, I'm kidding. Move on to the next one. We are hiring. If you are looking for a job, we are actually hiring and actively hiring people now. Feel free to scan this. These are the roles we are hiring. So we're hiring for a marketing communication specialist, growth marketer, growth coordinator, content writer, UI visual designer. You're wondering how the hell are we hiring for content writers when we can use ChatGPT? We enable them so they can produce more content. Every single one of these roles uses GPT and AI and technology within our organization. We believe in it. We think it's really, really important. We will teach you how to use it if you don't know how to use it. Okay? Moving on to the next. And that's me. I'm not on Instagram, not on TikTok. I'm on the boring things. I'm on Facebook. Oh, no, I'm kidding. I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on Twitter. So if you want to stay connected with me, you can go ahead and scan that, and you can hear more of the information that we provide on all these types of topics. And that is it. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for investing an hour of your time, and I hope I didn't bore you.